Welcome to Strictly Creative, where we speak to artists, creators, dreamers, and supporters of all things creative. In this episode, we sit down with actor and performer Cassel Miles, the creative force behind Josiah, a one-person play that tells the remarkable and often overlooked story of Josiah Henson. Born into slavery and brutally enslaved for 41 years, Josiah Henson escaped from Kentucky to Canada with his wife and 4 children in 1830. In Canada, he founded a community for freedom seekers, the Dawn Settlement near Chatham, Ontario, and became a religious leader, educator, and conductor on the Underground Railroad. His 1849 autobiography would go on to inspire Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin, a book that helped shape the course of American history. Yet despite his profound impact, Henson's name remains largely uncelebrated in Canada. Josiah was originally co-created by Cassel Miles and Charles Robertson and written by Charles Robertson. In our conversation, Cassel reflects on his journey from a young dancer in Scarborough, Ontario, to performing with Les Ballets Jazz du Montreal, the Stratford Festival, and later discovering his true calling as an actor. We talk about rediscovering passion, the creative process, and why telling Josiah Henson's story is a vital act of remembrance for Canadians today. Please note that some portions of this interview may sound slightly altered. Minor edits were made to counteract wind interference and other background noise to ensure better audio clarity.
You're doing a solo performance, a one-person performance on stage. Does it get lonely up there?
Lonely? No. The characters I create fill the space. So it's not me, Cassel, doing it. It's whoever I'm embodying at the time, be it the slave master, Isaac Riley, be it Josiah himself, the narrator. It's not me. I am transformed into these other people, and they fill the space. And that's a wonderful thing. I get feedback from people that they seem to see more than one person on the stage. So no, I'm not alone at all.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because the fact that people see more than one person on the stage, and you mentioned energy. You know, that energy. Elaborate on the energy in your performance when you're on stage. What do you feel physically? Because you dance, you move, you take up space when you transform into all these different characters, not just your body, but your voice as well. Speak to us about the energy that moves through your body when you're up there.
So this is a great question because it speaks to the technique I'm training in, and I recently received my certification in, called the Michael Chekhov technique. So Chekhov differs from Stanislavski method acting in that method acting wants you to use your personal life issues, experiences, go to yourself to create the moments. Chekhov teaches to use exercises to create sensations. So Chekhov developed a set of exercises that are designed to create sensations within the body. The sensations lead to feelings, the feelings lead to emotions. Now, at the center of all that is exactly that, the actor's ideal center. So exercises to warm up, which I do as well every night, and also practice in my studio at home. It's like doing scales for music or doing bar for ballet, which I did years ago, but I do it every day. So I get used to what it feels like to have this actor's ideal center, this energy center within. This activates everything. So when I finish the show, I'm very tired. When I finish 2 shows, I'm extremely tired, but it's not me. There's this energy flowing through. I generate the whole thing before the show in warm-up, and then it just vibrates all the way through. So every character is imbued with it. Every dance movement, everything comes through this actor's ideal center, this energy within. And then at night, I can just, have a gin and tonic and forget about it.
When you were talking about the center, you touch your chest. Is it like your heart chakra?
No.
Where's it coming from?
Okay, good. No, this is part of why I'm about to start teaching classes in Kingston, but this is why it's important to differentiate. It's nothing to do with chakras, although he was a very, very spiritual actor and teacher. And he believed and understood that there's something beyond the tangible that is very real. And one of the things that we use is atmosphere. So where we are right now, there's a certain atmosphere, right? If a siren were to come blazing through, it would change the whole atmosphere, right? So it's nothing that we play, it's just, it is. And if you allow that to imagination, again, another Chekhov thing is imagination. So body, imagination, and voice, the three things you mentioned already, right? And the voice work comes through who is being portrayed. So certain sensations I know to create the character, and those sensations create the voice. So the whole thing. So it's completely transformed. It's a wonderful acting method because it's protecting the person. My person is not affected. And
It's not effective.
no, it's not. This is the problem that was found with the method, Stanislavski's method. By the way, Chekhov was the best student of Stanislavski. They worked together and they were creating this together. Stanislavski encouraged Chekhov to create his own technique. And they differed because Chekhov realized, don't use you, create something new, right? Create a character, step into that character, and then leave it alone at night. In fact,
But if you don't mind me asking, how do you separate?
well, without seeming trite, you just do. It's not me. It's like putting on, and then taking it off. Exactly. So my warm up an hour before the show is a process where by the time I get to 5-minute call, my whole mindset, my whole vibration, everything is geared towards that show because I've put on that coat, that cloak, right? I put on that cloak, that vibration, and I'm ready now to go and share this with you. And when you mention where in the heart it is, Chekhov says it is 3 inches within. So if you imagine putting a hand on the front of your chest and a hand on the back of your chest, in between those two, that's your center, your actor's ideal center. And this engine churns throughout the whole show. So as I take my position for the start of the show, it's churning, and it keeps going. And my partner can tell when I get tired because it starts to slow down, right? And I recognize it now, and I can go pick it back up. But it takes a lot of energy, right? But it also allows for complete transformation. And I mentioned someone last night saw the show and said, wow, the talkback, she mentioned that. The slave owner, Isaac Riley, right? I don't sound like him. I don't move like him. I don't think like him. I don't lash anybody like him. But when it comes to creating that for the play,
You definitely have. It comes across
Yes.
110%.
There you go. See?
And I was there, I watched this play with you. Oh, sorry. I had
I love it. Yeah.
I was there, and I when you transform into various characters, and in fact, when you're doing, there are moments where you're capturing. Well, I mean, there's a lot of trauma in the play, obviously. One traumatic scene in particular is when the mother loses her children, and that scene was it was quite hard, and I mean it was hard, but it was so believable. And why I ask about energy as well is in those moments when you're portraying those characters, and that separation, and you don't see the crowd, you don't see the reaction. How do you remain composed?
I'm in the zone. They say, once I put that cloak on and I step on that stage, it's another thing called crossing the threshold. So where we are now, we are in ordinary world, ordinary life, our ordinary selves. When I step on stage, I'm not my ordinary self. I'm something much bigger than me. And I have to be bigger than me to affect you, right? So my energy of me alone must be big enough for all of you in the audience. Each one of you must feel it. Director Jim Gerard, when we started working on this last September for the show at the Alumni Theater in Toronto in February, Black History Month, he kept saying to me, talk to the eye, talk to the eye. And I misinterpreted thinking he meant, and I've told this joke, thinking he meant talk to like the letter, capital letter I. I saw that and I thought, talk to me? Talk to the I? I was very confused. So I'm reading more about Chekhov. I'm reading more books. I'm reading more about his technique. And one of the passages from a director of his said, talk to the I-E-Y-E. Oh, now it makes sense, because earlier iterations of this show is completely different than its original introduction, like 2019. And in earlier iterations, we didn't have the lighting, so I've been doing it in like the YMCA or college or Janeo school, high school drama groups, and we tape out in 12 by 12 square. There's no lighting, and I'm looking right at you, right? I can see you, so I'm telling you the story. Now, with this iteration, these past two productions, they've been in professional theaters with full lighting, and I can't see, and I don't, without glasses, I not seeing much, so I can't see. I can see the first row, and I know that people are there, and I love the Gladstone. It's a beautiful little theater. Yes, oh wow. Yeah, I didn't know. When I was doing the show at GCTC in 2018, I would walk by there on the way. I was staying at is it Live or Live? That apartment thing up there on the hill by Gladstone, top of Gladstone. Live, L-I-V with a thing over top. Anyway, I was staying there, and I would walk down past the Gladstone Theater to get to GCTC. And I kept looking at this cute little building and thinking, wow, that'd be kind of fun to do a show there. And ta-da, here we are.
You made it happen, eh? You made it.
Well, I reached out to theaters, because after alumni, Sandy and I were looking to do more, and we wanted to bring the show, maybe do this iteration in Kingston, even though Kingston has seen the show twice already, plus during the Kingston Fringe. So they're kind of, Josiah it out, right? So it was decided by the team not to do this. And so we kind of sat. Well, Fendi's been Mr. Producer and reaching out to everybody, all the theaters across the country, everywhere. He's reaching out there. He's doing all kinds of work. And to get someone to take us on. And so I said, well, why don't we just do it ourselves again? And I wanted to do it in Ottawa, so I knew the Gladstone was there, so I looked it up, and initially I was told that I was too late for the season. And then a couple of months later, the email came in that if we're still interested, there's a spot open. And I thought, yeah, let's do it. Okay, great. So we met Robin Guy, and all that began. Robin is fantastic, yes. And
she's the manager, right?
Manager, yeah, Robin Guy. She's been such a wonderful supporter, and her energy is incredible. And her daughter Murphy came along as well. So it's a family affair, and it's fun and professional and impactful. And they have a presence there. I'm feeling presence here in Ottawa. Definitely, because the people coming apparently are, theater lovers. And when we went to the launch, we attended the launch of the season launch presentation, and I was up first, and I had no idea what do you want me to do? So there was another set of another production there blocking the entire stage. So we had this little square right down front, right in front of the audience. So at that level, that closeness, I don't know how I got from Robin Guy to this, but okay, we'll come back. At that closeness, with no real lighting, I was right there like I am now, looking at you, seeing the audience that close. So I did on a low situation where he doesn't move much, right? He just stands and tells you. But it was different because I could actually, understanding that what talk to the I, E-Y-D meant, like, oh, talk to you. Okay, now it makes sense. Robin came with her daughter for, was it opening night? Yes. Made her sales pitch, and then they had the most fun time, the two of them laughing and reacting all the way through the whole play.
Oh, was that them laughing?
Yes. And they were loving the whole thing. So, and there are little bits of humor woven in, yes. And the thing is, though, even though it's a horrible depiction of a horrible time in our history, it's okay to laugh every so often. Josiah certainly had to find time to laugh And he tells you, about his indomitability and about the fact that he never gave up. He just never did not think he could do it. So he did it, right? But I'm sure then he was very funny. I mean, the accounts I've read of him as well, he was very funny. Like his father, he was a storyteller and the center of attention. Yeah, so yeah.
You've lit so many chapters from a dancer, actor, creator. When you look back, what did each chapter give you that you still carry today? Because first you began in dance, right? And now you're acting, you're creating. What did each creative chapter of your story teach you that you still hold on today?
Great question. Wow. So dance aspect of it, I started that when I was 9 years old. And I'm now 60, and that passion is.
You don't look 60, man. You look much younger.
Why, I thank you very much. My body, though, it was totally different. And dancers' years being dog years, I joke about. There's lots of discipline learned through dance and understanding my body, how it moves, being able to be in every part of myself, my physical self. I studied modern dance, tap, jazz, and ballet. I had to learn all of it, right? So that's back in the day when I had to learn all of it, and I did. But what's held over to now is, as you saw in the production, my physicality is controlled, right? It's almost like a dance. It almost choreographed. I know exactly where my body needs to be in the space at that given time for that line, for that scene, for that whatever, transforming into the slaveholder, and his way of moving, transforming into another way of moving. The body, I know how my body moves, and that's from dancing, right? So I'm very aware of that, and I'm very grateful for that awareness. What I didn't realize until later in the dance career was that I was acting. Now, the first time that was brought to my attention, I was doing a show at the Limelight Dinner Theater in Toronto years ago, and someone came up to me afterwards and said, "You're an actor who dances." And I thought, what?
Were you offended?
No. I'd never heard that before. But then shortly thereafter, I was cast in the role of Belize in Angels in America at Canadian Stage. What the most challenging experience I had to that point. I come out of the ensemble of Crazy for You, as a dancer, singer, as the dancer guy, and suddenly I'm there, one of eight on this very strong ensemble, so in this amazing 2-part, 3-hour long each epic. It was like, wow, but I was acting. I didn't know I was acting, but I was acting because I never really studied it. I just kind of dancing, moving a certain way to music makes me feel a certain way, and that feeling comes out as some kind of, I don't know, emotion, something I didn't know what I was doing, I was doing, right? When the person pointed out to me that you are an actor who dances, it's like, oh, then I got the role of Belize / Mr. Lies, like, I was started going to test acting training on stage in front of people every night, making mistakes and figuring stuff out as I went along. And that led to finding my own way of doing things to get into that character. Right? I didn't have any process. I created one. The things I would do each night to get myself ready for the role. Things I would do backstage between scenes to prepare for the next scene. And one of the things I remember discovering, was putting my hands against the wall backstage and feeling the ball. And then I would say words about the character. He's motivated. He's grounded. He's mature. He's whatever. And I would feel those, like the wall is pushing back, and I feel those words go in. And I didn't realize I was already doing Chekhov. I was already doing Chekhov, which is a psychophysical. So your body and your mind work together. Your body creates sensations. Your mind interprets them as emotions or something. And you saw it, right? That was complete Chekhov you saw on that stage. Everything I'm doing is based on that technique. And so dancing influenced acting, influenced where I am now with Chekhov. It's wonderful. It just kind of flows.
You once said performing wasn't fun anymore in relation to dance. Like, what made you walk away, and what pulled you back into the creative process?
That's a difficult one.
If you don't, we don't have to go.
It's part of the reason for why I'm doing Josiah now. So it's a very good introduction to that. When I said that in backstage at the Randolph Theater in Chicago during the show Fosse, I said that to the stage manager, and I was warming up, and just the passion had gone. There was no excitement about the show coming up. There was nothing. And I thought, wow, this is not fun anymore. That's the first time I said it to myself or said it to anybody else. Shortly thereafter, when I came back to Toronto, I decided to not act for a bit and just get a real job and do something else. I gave myself 6 months. And for 6 months, I worked in some kind of hotel, concierge thing. And then an opportunity came to be in a production called The Adventures of a Black Girl in Search of God by Janet Sears, which was happening at Harbourfront. And so I know a lot of the guys here is so I was I had a good reputation going starting out, which I didn't realize in time. So I got cast in the ensemble. Didn't want a role, didn't want a responsibility. I wanted to go back to the basics and see if I could find the love again in theater. And I was with friends. We'd all dance together. We'd all, play together as with friends. So it should have been a good experience. But over the course of the time, that depression began again, and it worsened. And then during one of the shows, and we were being the river, so there were a bunch of us downstage in front of the stage, between the stage and the first row. This on our knees, bent over, our arms undulating as the river, right? And I'm undulating away, and I feel this weight, this dreaded, awful, heavy weight coming down and consuming me, and it terrified me. And all I could do, I'm trained to keep going. We were all trained, do not stop. So I couldn't stop the scene stock. But as the scene stopped, without even thinking, I ran. I ran to the dressing room, I got changed, and I ran out of the theater, right? Yeah. And this was, it terrified me. I was so, later found out it was a panic attack. Like, this is before the time that we all knew about and would even open our minds to this idea, right? It was like, he's off, or he's weak, or suck it up, or he's this, but no one ever asked what's wrong. No one asked what's wrong. As just the door was shut. I mean, the thing I say to people,
No one asked after the incident, or in general, or before, in this performance space during practice. No one ever.
It wasn't a thing back then, right? Now we're aware. Mental health, yes, yeah, and so we should be, yeah. But this was right before it broke. The woman who won the Olympics, Clara. She was the Bell spokesperson for mental health. Yes, those ads came out just after this happened, right? They started right after, so I was ahead of the curve again. So who knew? But I remember that when I left the theater and the door slammed behind me, the stage door. It was February at the Harbourfront, Lake Ontario, and dark, cold, and quiet. And the stillness was like deafening. And I remember thinking, that's the end of my career. As the door slammed behind me, bang, I felt, oh, that's it. Now what'll I do? So I was back in my Riverdale basement apartment, and absolutely depressed. I mean, I said last night, yay, close to doing something stupid, but no, it never went that way, suicidal or anything. It just was really, really down. And I remember sitting in my wingback chair, which faced the TV, and the TV was always on, just going. And this documentary came on about a man named Josiah Henson. And they mentioned it was being filmed in Dresden, Ontario, which I knew Dresden. It was like by London, Chatham area. Oh, so this is Canadian? Okay. So, and I'm listening to his story about this man born in Maryland as a slave, and what he endured and how he escaped to Canada and what he'd accomplished in Canada while he was here. And I was like, who the hell? Who was this man? I went through all of the history stuff for school in Ontario, and I'd never heard that name, right? I remember one module of history which dealt with Black history, and it was, of course, Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Dr. King. Malcolm X was the bad guy, but didn't say why, kind of thing. What also got me was looking at those maps of the Underground Railroad, and they have these big arrows pointing up, from places, and they get to the border with Canada and stop. And I thought, so where did they go? What did they do? I'm here. Where did they go? Right. So what happened during watching that show is the result of the whole story, which is that I got up. By watching that, during that 1 hour, I got out of that chair. I stood behind the chair, leaning on it, watching, just captivated. I don't know what it was about him, but I kept doing it. It touched my heart. Something about that story resonated. Something resonated and made me want to do better, be better, like him, right? So I was standing there at the back, and I remember hearing over my left shoulder, I should tell this story, because if I don't know it, who else doesn't know it? Okay. And you should write a play. Well, I never considered myself to be a writer, so I just scoffed at that one. And you will do it when you're 60. I was 40 at that time. And I thought 60, I'll be dead or something. That's at 40 years old, 60 seemed like so far away. Well, now I'm 60, and discovered that working with Jim on this new iteration, that just narrated this version of his autobiography to be transcribed in 1849 when he was 60. So here we are, I'm at the right time now to do justice to spreading this great man's name to as many Canadians as I can. You should know this man. It's the reason why you and I, brother, can be here. One of the reasons, And so what is relevant today about this is, wow. Okay, we had the truck parade there. All right. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
That's really fascinating, that you heard that voice and it was telling you that, you would be doing this performance at the age of 60. And here you are, doing it now. I want to quickly, if you don't mind, go back to the topic of mental health within the creative community. How, and it's 2025 now, people are informing themselves. Maybe they're more open. I think they're more open now, generally. They being Canadian culture seems to be more open to the topic of taking care of oneself, particularly as it relates to one's mental health. In the creative community, whether it's theater, whether it's dance, whether it's all things creative, what are your opinions on mental health in the performance scene? Is it something that creatives take seriously? Do they take care of their mental health? Do they talk about their mental health?
Yes, absolutely. It's now there's awareness about it, about the fact that we've all been carrying such baggage around, thinking that it's only us kind of thing. And it was a stigma to say, I go to a therapist, and one was thought weak to not have, be strong enough. You can't handle the pressure. The pressure is enormous. The pressure of uncertainty, the next job, it's enormous. The pressure of trying to elevate your craft, to become better, to keep training while still, making a living, especially as the cost of living is getting higher and higher. It's like the pressure is enormous. And so, yes, there's people, it's going to affect people. That's why I say, thinking about the actual person whose life I'm depicting, living the way he did, it made me aware of the mental health of enslaved people. We don't think about that. We see images, either photos or images in videos and film of an enslaved person, but look at the pictures, look at the faces in the still photographs, look at the eyes, look at the sadness, look at the weight. I mean, there must have been all kinds of mental health issues. There still are, because we're the humans of it, we're still the same humans, right? And we just created different obstacles with the society and cities well, especially what's happening now south of the border. I can't even get there, but we're in this danger zone. So there's always alert, the social media and the pressures of that. And it's just, what's the cancel culture, the Karens, the everything. There's so much like, bah, 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 bah. Yes, mental health is a huge issue. And the fact that we are now aware of it and it's not stigmatized, and I can proudly say, yes, I see a therapist that we have an appointment with him on Monday when I get back. Absolutely. Because there's a lot to carry, a lot to process, and one needs to speak to somebody about it to get some kind of honest feedback that can be used. And the industry now, being aware of it, takes into account how to help. So there are lines available to call in for assistance if you're like CAMH or so on. But if you need assistance, you could reach out and get it. It's available to you. And the CAEA, Actors Equity Association, Canadian Actors Equity Association, has a line as well where you can get help. And directors, the stage managers, they're all aware of this. So, and then if we just say to our fellow cast members, this is happening, we're all aware, right? So we've got your back. So there's spaces made now for people to manage their mental health. Yeah.
Do you think creatives, people who are heavily involved professionally, to maybe more on the personal side, people who are heavily involved in their craft, are they more prone potentially? And I know this is maybe somewhat about you. I'm not trying to sound inappropriate or by any means when I ask this. This is from my own observation. Are we as creatives maybe more prone to undiagnosed mental health issues, but potentially just due to some of our creative practices and some of our rituals that really, whether you're writing poetry, whether you're acting plays, performing, I don't know if there's any study on this, but from what you've observed, do you think creatives potentially, I don't know if I'm framing this right, so pardon me, but do you know what I'm saying?
I think so, but what's coming to me right away is that I don't know that we can create a generalization like that about creative people being, well, it's already thought of, as being a little strange or there's many stories from artists, myself included, about being the odd one in the family, the only one that does this. Whereas there are people that come from a full lineage of families and are in theater and entertainment. I don't think that there's any generality between creativity and mental health. There is more access, if you will, to the imagination for the artist, but I wouldn't say that's any different than, say, for the architect or the engineer or the surgeon. So it's not, mental health is a human aspect, the human thing. Here we go, double windshield. Yeah. Mental health is a human thing, so it does not matter what you do or how you come to get your inspiration. Yeah, I don't think it's got to do anything with mental health.
There's a lot of therapy that comes from performance, right? People, there's creative therapy, there's art therapy where people use art, even drama, to heal themselves, right? I know Concordia University has a program on drama therapy where therapists essentially are actors who use the the creative milieu of performance to assist people. I think Concordia has a program on that, and also a visual arts component as well. So art has a lot of benefits, obviously, in terms of entertainment, but also healing, absolutely. And I apologize for dancing around that topic of mental health. I think it's something that I see in everything. If it's in sports and in arts, it's who we are as humans, our mind and our body. But I'm going to move on to the next question here. When you're building a show, how do you know it's done? Or is it never done? Because you perform, you perform these plays, you've danced, you've acted. When do you know, when you're drafting and putting the idea together, when do you know this is done, this is good to go?
Okay, so my experience before Josiah was always performing an already done, produced, published play. So that was done.
Right.
We could not change that. Creating Josiah, when Charles Robertson and I began this work in 2018, Charles Robertson was the co-artistic producer of Model 3 Productions back then. And I was doing a show called Vanya and Sonia and Masha and Spike for them. And I got to meet Charles and started talking about it. Charles is a writer. And so I told him about my wish to write a play about Josiah Henson. And I told him about Josiah Henson, and he said he'd take it on. And then that was, basically a shrug, and I'll do it. And I thought, okay. So we left it at that. That was the thing, June and July. And in October of that year, November 2018, he came back with the first draft of Josiah. But it was a different Josiah Henson from Slave to Savior was the original title, because we thought to do the whole story, but he realized that the whole story is 2 plays, right? So he actually initially decided we're going to do a trilogy, 3 plays to tell the story. So when we began to actually work on it, I did a first reading in December 2018, and then it was decided to do a workshop presentation of it for 2019, February, at the Baby Grand Theater, the Studio Theater in Kingston at the Grand Theater. So we went into rehearsals right away. Now, the rehearsals for a new script where I have no idea, first of all, the concept. One person, never done that before, in a square of lights 12 feet by 12 feet. No set. No props. One costume, a cap, and a handkerchief.
And a bucket.
And a bucket. And you're going to create a whole world, several worlds in there. And as you can hear the way I'm saying it, it's like, what?
That's awesome.
I came from the world of hydraulic sets and things flying and props everywhere, and nothing. So we began working on it. And the big things that we worked on was the transitions into the characters, right? I had never done that before. I don't know. So we just had to work until he would coach me in figuring out how to get from this one to that one. And initially, what he had me doing was from standing in one position, going from this into that, right? So I learned to do that. Ironically, when Jim and I started working, Jim said, no, don't go from this into that, go from this step into that, which was my initial instinct way back when. So I thought, okay, we'll get there.
Which, by the way, sorry to interrupt the transformation when you do the shifting, love it, man. It really, we can feel the character, we can see it, we can feel it. It's especially when like the tough parts of the plays with some of these characters, like the slave master and whatnot. Yeah, you can feel the heel, like in pro wrestling they use the term heel for bad guy. Like the heel, like demeanor, your body language, the way it transforms and jumps at you. It's please continue. All I'm saying is the transformation really does it from the spectators.
Yeah, it was great. So I guess we're glad to hear that. Thank you. I'll pass it on to Jim as well. So yeah, the first show I did in the Baby Grand was, aside from Angels in America, then the hardest thing I had ever done. And one person, and the way the script was, there was a lot of moving around. What Jim and I did with this one was really pare it down. So take all the extraneous away, so it's one straight line going right through. We never let you off the hook. You have to know what's next. There's no going off here and diverging, which was in the original plan. There was no real format. This was new for Charles as well, this format. And so we created that together. He would write something, I would review it and try it and say, what do we try it this way? And then he would adjust it. And then we just kind of tweaked the whole thing as we went along. And then after he would watch it and I would play it, and then he would come back with a revision of something. So he thought that maybe some characters should be shortened or diminished completely. Some should be added. So I'd have to learn another person. So we did this now at the Red Sandcastle Theater. So Rosemary Doyle, who is the artistic producer of Theater Kingston and a friend of mine as well, she saw the show and offered her Red Sandcastle Theater in Toronto to do the show. So February, first time doing it. May, now we're doing it in Toronto. So it was better to get used to running it, but it was still very difficult because the story wasn't, we didn't know it yet. The story wasn't quite refined. Okay, so to speak to the question you asked, how do you know when it's finished? It wasn't yet finished. So Charles went back and did some more tweaking and came back again. We did another version for the Kingston Fringe in July. Except Rosemary, who was running that, had this idea to call it Book 1 and Book 2. So I would do the start like Act 1 and the Book 1 and then Act 2, Book 2. But on the days when I had to do Book 2 first, it was very confusing, right? Because I can't jump into the middle of the story. I didn't know the story well enough yet to know exactly where to go. But now, when we're doing like the cue to cue technically, and they say, they give me a line from the play, where are you there? I know exactly where I am. Where does it go, right? So that's another version of the play. Then he went back and did some more revisions, and we did the one-off at the grand main stage. There was the YMCA, Sheridan College, a stint at the Josiah Henson Museum in Dresden, did a couple of scenes there. But all the way through, every time we did something, there was a change, there was a tweak. It was never finished. So in 2020, by the time we got to Orangeville, setting up for that in 2021, over that summer, Charles and I worked rehearsing, and there were things added that had no business being there. There was a rap. There was a modern dance section. There was
like a rap as in rapping?
Rapping, yes. I was rapping. I would take some of the section and rap it. There was a whole mother losing the children was a whole modern dance section. Wow, a la Marseille. You know, it's we're trying to go back into everything I could do. I put everything I could do into this show. What ended up happening was a very weighted and clunky Act 1. And then Act 2 kind of went up. And then I hated, I came to resent the show. Wow, it wasn't his story. It was trying to showcase me. And I thought, no. So when we put the relationship and the play to rest in 2022, I thought we'd done it. That we're not going to do it anymore. I did it one more time like that for the Limestone District School Board with their kids who had done it for the year before. So one performance of that for all the schools to come, and that was the end of that. In 2024, I'm doing a play, Theater Kingston, called Bakersfield Mist, and Jim Gerard is directing. Jim Gerard is a theater legend in Canada. one of the founders of Theatre Passepartout in Toronto, 1971, and a force. Still a wonderful man, a wonderfully creative force, and I benefited greatly from working with him in the rehearsal period, September until February last year, and he came back for one day before this production just to have a look and tweak things, and his notes were invaluable. They always are. So during the run of Bakersfield, one day in the dressing room, Jim approached and said, "You should do Josiah again." And I thought, no, I'm done with Josiah. I don't want to do that. And told him why. He's uploaded his he'll produce it. What? And he thinks it has legs. It should go on tour across the country.
Wow.
What? Okay. Only problem is that Charles and I had a falling out by that point, and weren't speaking to each other. So Jim would be the go-between. Jim was to Charles an idol of some kind. He spoke about him all the time. And Jim saw both of the iterations, plus the Fringe, I think, the Fringe versions, and thought the show was good, but it was, So he would be the go-between between us. So we finally got a contract signed, right? Charles assigned us the rights to do the show. He would have nothing to do with it. He gets his 5%, I get 5% because we both co-own the show. And that would be that. And then Jim and I began actually working together. He didn't want to, he didn't have time, he said, but then he began making time. And we would spend hours in Anne-Marie's Bottle Tree studio, her little studio theater at the top of the St. Andrew's Church in Kingston. And we would spend like 3 afternoons a week. That's what Charles and I did. But this time we were taking all the stuff out. Everything that had nothing to do with the story, out, refining. And just with Jim and I alone, I had the master copy on my Google Docs, and I would do, he would do his corrections, send it to me. I'd insert the whole thing and then, reissue a new one. I don't know how many versions of that. I thought we'd done it, and then we go and rehearse and think, nope, got to change that. So even that never stopped until like maybe a month before, 3 weeks before the alumni show, when finally we said, okay, that's it. January 25th, that was it. January 25th was the last one. We said, that's it. No more changes, that's it. Because we also had to write a whole new ending. So Charles had only written up to the point where Josiah and his family crossed the river into Indiana, and the play stops. And people kept asking, so how did he get to Canada, right? And so Jim asked the same thing. And so I wrote the ending. I know the story, so I wrote the ending, right? I'm working with Jim to tweak it and hone it. And then we had the full play from when he starts his first memory to when he arrives on the shores of Canada. Boom, the play's complete. And that, we're not going to touch it again. Actually, Sandy and I, in rehearsals in my home studio, found some like changes of words and just little minor things because I'm saying it, and the character is coming out and saying it, and the way the character says it makes more sense than the way it was written, if that makes sense. So we changed it to that kind of thing. But as typing that, the play is now done. This iteration is what will be presented from now on. Done. No more changes.
A couple of more questions. I'm curious to know, what's the reception been like for the play? And if I can ask a follow-up, the vision of taking it across the country, is that doable? What would it take for us to see this coast to coast to coast? Because it's telling an incredible story about an incredible human being, and people need to see this, right? So what will it take for it to go across the country?
I mentioned earlier, Sandy McFadden, the producer, co-producer, has been sending out letters, emails ostensibly to every artistic director of basically every theater company across the country, and saying just that. Yeah, we'd love for you to take it on. What it would take is for a theater company to present the play, produce it. Here it is. We have the rights to it. Here, produce the play, put us in your season, 2-week run, 3-week run, put us in your season. That's all it would take. And if one begins, Theater Orangeville did during COVID, we fit their bill because there's no set. There's just me and a bucket, as he mentioned. There's just me. There's nothing but me, right? And the sound cues. We need a computer with sound cues and lighting, but it's easy to set up. There's no load in. It's easy, right? And so all it requires is one company to take it. Yeah. Reach out to us. Taza Rich Productions. Yeah. Reach out to us and hire us. Buy the show. Yeah.
If people reach out to these theater companies as just inquiring, does that what does that do in terms of, does that help?
Well, this is the thing as well to remember. The people I'm staying with now, David Frisch and his wife Kim, we were talking about that this morning, that it's like steering a boat or a ship. The theater companies plan well in advance, right?
Okay.
So we can reach out to them now, and we'll either get no response, but doesn't mean they haven't seen it,
right?
Or we'll get a response they're not interested right now, or they'll want to know more about it. One wanted to have a script send us up, a couple of them, so we did that. But we know that what we're doing now might not bear fruit. I mean, Josiah says that, bear fruit many years later. It won't happen until 2027, but that's okay. Yeah, so we're willing to wait. But I think, though, and you've mentioned as well, and people, the reception, the first part of the question you asked, the reception, both of the alumni and here, has been extraordinary. And it every single time surprises me. I can't see the audience, as I told you, until the very end. I finish that last bit, the light's in my face. I'm right downstage in front of you all. Then I step back into the space, and the lights come up. I can see you, and the applause begins. And the applause is on its feet at every single time. And I'm like, wow. And last night was exceptionally wow, because there were friends there who had seen it before in Toronto, and they were like, wow. But it was there. That speaks to the impact of the play on the people. The house is dead quiet. You can hear a pin drop, and then I didn't understand at first. I thought they hated me. They're not listening. No, they're listening. Oh yes, very much so. So focused and intent that nothing else matters. Everyone in that space is focused on that story, not me, the story. And that's important. It's not about me and my ego being whatever. No, if it was that, I'd be a little snowflake and melt and run off and go hide in my basement apartment again. No, but as Josiah, embodying that character, we're all there, just connected. It's incredible, yeah. And then the response, every single time, even with 5 people, we had 5 people in the audience, your one show in the alumni, and they all stood up. And they were not sitting together. So I was like, wow, okay, yeah.
How do you feel at the end? You mentioned earlier on, by the end of your performance, obviously, you've given us 200%, so you're physically tired. But how is your spirit feeling at the end of the play, at the end of the performance?
Wide open, and that's the exact feeling. It's one of the Chekhov things is a psychological gesture, and that is if your body does something, you get a feeling on that. If I open my arms like that, I feel like, and you feel this thing coming out. And that's what I'm doing when I turn to you and say, that was my father. And I start talking to you, that is what's open to you. I'm giving you his story, right? All the stuff happens in between. And at the end, I am free, which you'll see. It only be spoiler alert. At the end, though, everything is relaxed. Everything is open. And I am now relaxed because my job is done. I've done my job. Now it's up to you, and the lights come up, and you tell me by your reaction and your applause that you enjoyed what you just felt, experienced, and that makes me feel relieved. And that action right there is just open. So my body is physically tired. My spirit is actually just sated. Yeah. So enough to go on and do it again the next night, but I need to go and rest my body physically because I can't push through. Otherwise, you spoke about the authenticity of the transformations. If I pushed through them, they would not ring true to you. Like if I wasn't present enough to be present in my body with full strength, they'd be false. Yeah. I know that because it's already happened. That's I know. Don't do that again.
How do you guard and protect your energy from and kind of cultivate a certain balance? How do you do that?
Breath work and meditation. So here's another thing about mental health. I had a run-in with alcoholism. So I'm an alcoholic. I should be at AA, but we are managing. And so during that time, I had to go to rehab, and I discovered meditation, right? It was there that we had to do it. Now, I knew about it before, but I never probably practiced it, right? When I began to prepare for the alumni show in February, September 1st, I set that date for myself, and I began doing breath work. I found this online YouTube. It's called Breathe with Sandy. He looks like Jesus. The long hair. He wears no shirt, the white pants. He's on a beach or some exotic place. He's in, cross-legged pose, and he's very Zenish, but he's so cool. And I love his videos, right? These all varies from 5 minutes up to an hour. He gets Breathe with Sandy. Great music, great location, his voice. It's wonderful. So we began to do that every day. Couple that with meditation, and then later on adding in the daily practice of the checkoff exercises. So there's 3 exercises that I do just to get that into the body. And once I'm in there, now ready to go. So it's daily care. That's just really caring, grounding daily. So the breath work is really, check out Breathe with Sandy on YouTube. He is amazing. And you ground, and it goes right in, and the whole body vibrates. And you can feel all parts of yourself. So you know that you are here, right? So I don't need someone to tell me. I'm almost shielded in a way, because everything is connected with it. I'm connected with it. So I'm here. So I don't need anyone else telling me what they think I am or where I should be. It doesn't affect me, right? So I can hold on to that. And that, I know I was saying that at breakfast this morning to the folks that, whatever happens by 4 o'clock in the day of a show, change. Okay, mind shift. Nope. Showtime. Show mode. And then I start thinking about what I need to be energy-wise to give you all more than you expected, right? So, so, the whole day is fine until it's time to work. And then as soon as that's done, time for a drink.
Why not? Man, it's incredible. I think as consumers of all things creative, particularly in the performance arts, I think we may take for granted how much energy it takes to do what you do day in, day out, especially as a solo performance. You're performing here in Ottawa for, I believe it's 5 nights.
Yeah, 7 shows, yeah.
Okay.
So August 19th through 23rd.
Yeah.
2 shows Wednesday, 2 shows Saturday, 7 shows total. Yeah. 3 to go.
It's incredible. It's like an endurance sport. It's just fascinating, to be able to push through that. I know you're probably hearing that and saying, "Hey, it's my profession. This is what I do." But I'm like for the everyday person, I don't think we can fully grasp how much energy that takes and balance, to.
If I may, sure. One question I keep getting is, how do you memorize all those lines? And that's a skill as well, and also muscle memory, a muscle to develop. But this story I know so well. I know this version especially so well. I know exactly where I am at every time. So sometimes when my mind does go away, and I do like miss a line, and it just goes. But I know where I am. It could bring it back. Right? So yeah, smart.
I have a few quick ideas where we're gonna wrap up soon, but I think. hearing you speak about the play and obviously your time in the creative milieu, I think you could also do like a lecture series across as you're performing and not to add to your but you know what I mean? Like you can tap into, the lecture community, whether it's through the university community, uh, as a way to kind of also tap into a different sort of audience to kind of augment the effort. But just from meeting you today and interviewing you, you're a fascinating person, and I'm thinking to myself, you would make a very interesting documentary. Like I don't know if a documentary profile's ever been done on you in terms of telling the behind the scenes of this play and the Josiah story. It would make for interesting content, I think, to go along. You know what I mean? To the kind of
Cool.
yeah, to build up on the story and generate more interest, because I think you have a lot of potential different ways to kind of content produce and promote the story and the performance. There's an academic, historical angle to the story. There's a cultural one. There's a performance one. There's so many layers there, and there's your story as a performer in it. So it's an interesting initiative, like telling this story, because it's a very unique Canadian and American story. Sorry, actually, one question I wanted to ask: has the idea of performing in the U.S., like performing this play in the U.S., has that happened? Is that something you would?
Idea is there, but the idea is definitely there. But right now, giving them no, sure no.
We don't have to get into that. I totally I think people would understand. But
No, as to lecturing or doing something more with this is where the Chekhov technique teaching comes in, because I use Chekhov technique to create this show. So I'm going to begin teaching in Kingston, September, teaching the technique and the tools of the technique, which can be used for, of course, everything, right? So it's not necessarily about talking about him, Josiah Henson, and the show Josiah, but the technique of creating those characters, of creating characters, right? So I'm going to be teaching that, and that's my way of getting it more out of the production than just like doing it, like me doing it. Now I can show you how you can do one like it for yourself, kind of thing. I was brought on to talk at the YMCA one year about Josiah, which I can do. But then they asked to talk about something more the next year. I was like, oh, I'm not an academic. I went to Sheridan College, and then I went to New York. And I started working. So yeah, I love to read about things that interest me, and I've read everything from and about Josiah Henson that I can get my hands on. And my home library is stocked, and I have a lot of Black history that I've had to delve into and understand the Canadian Black history and how much slavery was here. I was like, oh, really? Yeah, and understand how the Underground Railroad came up here, and so. Yeah, so there's things I can talk about with Josiah, but I think the first foray into anything more is to learn how to be a teacher on this technique that allowed me to create this show.
One last question for you. As a creative, what's the most important thing we need to remind ourselves as people who create art? What is that most fundamental thing that you would say you go back to as a principle to create?
Well, it's going to sound corny. But nice roundabout way to end it, though. The sweatshirt, believe, right? That's why I got it. That's why I got the poster, which is hanging in my studio. That's why I have the sweatshirt, because I need to believe in myself, believe that I can do it. And that's part of the Chekhov technique as well. If you believe that you are in by the ocean right now, you're by the ocean, and you believe that there are waves washing on the shore, and you believe that you are there, I'll believe it too, right? But you have to believe it first, feel the atmosphere, and whatever the scenery is around you, you believe, and then you'll do it. The belief is also deeply implanted. This is lines from the show as well, in the breast of every human being. So you know what your creativity is. Trust it, believe in it, do it. Yes, be your creative self, right? If you need to know who that is, go inside and ask. This is where meditation comes in. This is where breath work comes in. You get inside, you're grounded, your whole body is enlivened. Now ask the question, what should I do? And follow the action, right? Don't second guess the impulse, follow the impulse, because that's your creativity talking to you, right? So even today coming in, Sandy gives me notes about the show because he's watching every day, right? And he'll note that a certain character delivered the line a certain way differently. Why? I said, well, that was the impulse, right? When I'm in that moment as that person said it that way. Okay, that's it. So you're not restricted. And that's what Chekhov as well teaches, where you're so in tune with your body that when an impulse comes in, you can react. If you're not a dancer, you're not an actor, you're not physical, you're writing or you're painting or whatever it is, the same thing, that creative aspect, right? Ask yourself, what? And believe the answer. So for Ted Lasso fans, believe.
Thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely, my friend. Thank you. A pleasure to talking with you.
You've been listening to Strictly Creative, a podcast that explores the stories and minds behind creative expression. A special thanks to Cassel Miles for sharing his journey and for bringing Josiah to life on stage. For upcoming performances, visit casselmiles.com. To learn more about upcoming performances at the Gladstone, Ottawa's home for independent theater, visit thegladstone.ca.